Carl Jung said, "Don't despair. The universe isolates you for a reason. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity." Albert Einstein. Have you ever wondered why life sometimes pulls you away from certain people, places, or paths? What if this isolation isn't a setback, but the universe's way of reshaping you into who you were meant to become? In today's episode of Spiritual Wisdom, we'll uncover Carl Jung's timeless insight into why solitude can be the most powerful stage of your transformation. As you listen, think about moments in your life when isolation became a turning point and share your thoughts in the comments. You never know who your story might inspire. 1. Isolation is not punishment, but transformation. The universe often removes you from people, situations, and familiar paths not to punish you, but to create the sacred space your soul needs for transformation. This separation strips away the noise and distractions that keep you entangled in roles, expectations, and routines that no longer serve your growth. Carl Jung called this journey individuation, the profound process of integrating the conscious and unconscious parts of yourself so you can live in wholeness and authenticity. It is in the stillness of isolation that the quiet voice within finally becomes audible, guiding you toward the deeper truths you've long ignored. In the absence of constant activity and external validation, you begin to face the unfiltered mirror of your inner world. The layers you have built to protect yourself, patterns, habits, masks, start to dissolve, revealing the raw and unedited truth of who you are. Jung understood that the unconscious is a vast reservoir of hidden wisdom, buried emotions, and symbolic messages. When life draws you away from the crowd, it is often because your soul needs you to turn inward and explore this hidden territory. Like a deep sea diver descending into uncharted waters, you are invited to uncover treasures buried far beneath the surface, treasures that could never be found in the shallow tides of daily busyness. This is not an easy journey. At first, the silence can feel heavy, almost unbearable, because it forces you to confront the parts of yourself you've avoided. The shadows emerge, the fears, wounds, and unhealed experiences that have quietly shaped your choices. Yet, it is in this very confrontation that transformation takes root. The soil of the soul must sometimes be tilled and cleared of weeds before it can nourish new growth. The universe knows that without this stripping away, you cannot fully align your outer life with your inner truth. Isolation becomes a spiritual greenhouse, a protected environment where the fragile seedlings of self-awareness can grow strong before they face the unpredictable weather of the world. In this sacred space, the boundaries between the conscious and unconscious begin to soften. Dreams become more vivid. Symbols and synchronicities appear, and insights arrive with startling clarity. You begin to notice the patterns that have governed your relationships, the archetypes you've unconsciously lived out, and the hidden motives behind your choices. Every realization is like a thread being pulled from a tangled knot, slowly unraveling the old fabric so a new one can be woven. Just as the tree must endure the stillness and apparent lifelessness of winter before the vitality of spring, your soul, too, must retreat into quiet before it can bloom again. This withdrawal is a gathering of strength, a deep alignment with your true nature, so that when you return to the flow of life, you will move from a place of power rather than survival. The people and opportunities that meet you after this season will no longer resonate with the version of you that existed before, because you will not be that person anymore. You will carry a new clarity, a grounded sense of self, and the ability to walk your path without bending to the noise around you. In this way, isolation is not a void, but a womb, dark, still, and nurturing, where the soul prepares for rebirth. What feels like loss is often the removal of what could not follow you into your next chapter. What feels like emptiness is simply space being made for the fullness of who you are becoming. And what feels like an ending is, in truth, the beginning of your deepest alignment with the life you were meant to live. Have you ever embraced a period of isolation as a gift from the universe? If so, share in the comments how it transformed you so others can be inspired. If not, simply comment, "I will embrace it," and let's walk this path of self-discovery and wholeness together. 2. The role of the shadow. Carl Jung taught that one of the most vital steps on the path to self-realization is the integration of the shadow, the hidden, often rejected aspects of yourself that you've pushed into the dark. These are the traits you deny, the emotions you hide, and the desires you pretend don't exist. Isolation, rather than being a cruel punishment, strips away the external noise, the endless validations, and the social obligations that allow you to keep running from these parts of yourself. In that stillness, there is no audience to perform for, no constant distractions to shield you from your inner world. You are left with yourself raw, unfiltered, and unmasked, and it is here that the process of individuation truly begins. It is here you are given the chance to meet your own soul face to face. In modern life, this often happens in moments we least expect. The job you thought was secure suddenly ends. Friends you believed would be there forever slowly drift away, or circumstances force you into more evenings alone than you've ever experienced. At first, it feels like loss upon loss, as if the universe is closing every door at once. But Carl Jung would remind you that these moments are not about abandonment, they are about revelation. Without the need to constantly present yourself to others, you begin to notice patterns you've long ignored. You might see that much of your identity was built on pleasing people who never truly saw you. You may realize how often you've silenced your own needs to avoid conflict. These truths can feel like sharp edges cutting into the illusions you've carried. Yet they are also the chisels shaping you into a more authentic version of yourself. The shadow, Jung believed, is not just a storehouse for the negative, it also contains hidden gifts, creativity, and resilience. The anger you've kept locked away might actually be your inner compass, pointing toward violated boundaries. The envy you've buried could be a signpost directing you toward desires you've been too afraid to claim. Even the sadness you've tried to outrun might be the wellspring of your deepest empathy. Isolation forces you to sit with these feelings, to listen to what they are trying to teach you, and to reclaim the parts of yourself you once thought you had to reject. In our hyper-connected world, this is rare work. Most people drown their inner voice in the constant hum of messages, social feeds, and endless entertainment. Facing the shadow requires a willingness to pause, to be still, and to witness your own contradictions without judgment. Jung understood that without this inner reckoning, you remain divided, forever seeking validation outside yourself instead of living from the grounded power of wholeness. Isolation, then, becomes not an exile, but a sanctuary, a sacred space where the distractions fall away so that the truth can rise. When life pulls you away from the familiar, it is an invitation to see yourself more clearly than ever before. Your fears may reveal where you are meant to grow. Your hidden desires may point to your true calling. Your unacknowledged traits may hold the strength you need for the next chapter. This is the essence of individuation, not to become someone entirely new, but to embrace the fullness of who you already are. And sometimes, the only way to find that fullness is by walking through the silence of isolation, listening closely to your soul, and allowing the parts you once rejected to become the very sources of your strength. 3. Creative solitude and inner wisdom. When the world's noise fades away and you find yourself wrapped in the quiet of solitude, it is not emptiness. It is the universe creating a sacred space for your spiritual growth. Alone time becomes a sanctuary where your thoughts settle, your emotions breathe, and your soul finally speaks with clarity. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." And in that awakening, you discover that solitude is not a prison, but a doorway. In that stillness, the fog of confusion lifts. Creativity begins to flow effortlessly, and your intuition steps forward as your most trusted guide. This is where you meet the truest version of yourself, the one that is unshaped by the expectations, noise, and judgments of the outside world. Many of history's greatest minds, Leonardo da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, Emily Dickinson, and Jung himself, sought solitude not because they rejected the world, but because they understood it was the birthplace of deep insight and transformative work. When you step away from the constant demands and endless chatter, you create the mental and emotional space for your subconscious to weave together patterns, reveal hidden truths, and deliver ideas that could never emerge in the chaos of distraction. Solitude is like tending a delicate spiritual garden. If you trample through it constantly, weighed down by noise and clutter, nothing fragile or beautiful can grow. But when you clear the space, when you allow silence to stretch out like fertile soil, the seeds of creativity and wisdom within you begin to bloom. This is the kind of inner richness that cannot be rushed. It unfolds only when you give yourself permission to be still. It is also in these moments that your intuition sharpens, becoming more than just a whisper. It becomes a compass. Without the constant influence of trends, opinions, and pressures, you start to feel the difference between what the world tells you to want and what your soul is truly calling you toward. Jung believed that this inner listening is essential for individuation, the process of becoming whole. Without it, your identity risks being built on borrowed beliefs instead of your own spiritual truth. If you have ever been told that your desire for solitude is strange or selfish, remember that some of humanity's most profound breakthroughs were born in the quiet. Great novels, scientific revolutions, and spiritual revelations have all emerged from this sacred space. Henry David Thoreau once said, "I never found a companion that was so companionable as solitude." And in that truth lies a reminder. When you are alone in stillness, you are not truly alone. You are in the presence of your own soul. The universe does not isolate you to punish you, but to prepare you. It removes the distractions so you can hear what has been waiting within you all along. It gives you time to align with your higher self, to awaken dormant parts of your mind, and to create something that can transform not only your life, but the lives of others. In embracing solitude, you step into the quiet forge where the most powerful versions of yourself are shaped, where your spiritual purpose begins to shine, and where the wisdom you uncover becomes the gift you carry back to the world. Comment below, "I embrace my sacred solitude," if you're ready to turn this season of isolation into a wellspring of clarity, creativity, and inner wisdom. 4. Synchronicity and hidden purpose. Through isolation, the unconscious and the universe can finally speak to you without interference. And in that silence, you begin to notice that nothing is as random as it once appeared. The conversations you overhear, the song lyrics that echo your private thoughts, the unexpected encounter with someone who offers exactly the words you needed, all of these begin to align in ways that feel too precise to be coincidence. Carl Jung described this as synchronicity, the mysterious connection between inner shifts and outer events, as though your soul's quiet awakening is causing the fabric of reality to rearrange itself around you. This is why your isolation is not empty space. It is a living, breathing field of meaning in which subtle signs are planted like seeds, each one nudging you toward a path you might not yet be able to see. In this space, away from the noise, you begin to hear the soft but insistent voice within, the one that has been drowned out by the demands, expectations, and distractions of the external world. Without the constant pull of other people's energy, your unconscious is free to send you messages that rise like waves from deep waters. Truths about who you are, what you value, and what you must release in order to grow. You may wake with sudden clarity about a choice you've been avoiding, or feel an unshakable pull toward a new direction, or simply know that a chapter of your life is closing even before the evidence appears. This is the work of both the soul and the universe, moving together in a quiet, deliberate partnership to prepare you for transformation. What seems like separation is often a cocoon, a protective boundary within which change can happen without interference. Just as the caterpillar must dissolve entirely before becoming the butterfly, you too may feel as if parts of your old self are breaking down. The patterns you once followed, the identities you wore, the stories you told yourself they no longer fit because something larger is being built in their place. And while this process can feel disorienting, even painful, the synchronicities you encounter are there to reassure you that you are not lost. You are aligning. Each meaningful coincidence is like a hand on your back, a quiet push reminding you that you are exactly where you need to be, even if you cannot yet see the destination. The more you trust this process, the more clearly the signs appear. A book arrives in your life at the exact moment its message can change you. An old dream resurfaces with renewed urgency, calling you to pursue it. An obstacle forces you to slow down, only to reveal that the delay led you to something far better than what you had planned. These are not accidents. They are the universe's way of working in harmony with your soul's deeper knowing. Isolation sharpens your ability to recognize these threads, to see how they weave together into a pattern that could not have emerged in the chaos of constant motion. When you begin to live with this awareness, every moment becomes a conversation with something greater. The stillness becomes less of a void and more of a sacred space where life reveals its hidden architecture. You realize that isolation was never about removing you from the world. It was about placing you in the exact position where you could finally see the path that has been waiting for you all along. And as you step forward, guided by these subtle but undeniable signals, you understand that what felt like loss was actually alignment, and that every quiet moment was preparing you for the most meaningful stage of your journey. If you found these insights meaningful, be sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's continue exploring the deeper truths the universe reveals through solitude and synchronicity together. 5. The dark night of the soul. Deep loneliness, often referred to as the dark night of the soul, is not simply an emotional void, but a sacred stage in the transformation of your inner world. Carl Jung understood this as a pivotal moment in the journey of individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating every aspect of yourself, including the parts you've hidden, denied, or neglected. When the universe draws you away from familiar people, routines, and environments, it is not punishing you, but guiding you into a space where the noise of the world fades and the whispers of your true self can finally be heard. This separation strips away the masks you've worn to please others, the identities shaped by societal expectations, and the beliefs that were never truly yours. In a modern life defined by constant connection, this isolation can feel abrupt and unsettling, triggered by the loss of a job, the end of a relationship, or a sudden shift in health. Yet beneath the discomfort lies an invisible design. Your soul is preparing you for a deeper alignment, clearing away what no longer serves so you can step into a life that is authentically your own. It is in these seasons of stillness that a hidden alchemy takes place. You may feel the ache of disconnection, the restlessness of uncertainty, but you are also being refined like gold in fire. Every false identity begins to dissolve. Every old narrative that once defined you starts to crumble. Without the distractions and demands of the outside world, you are left face to face with your own truth, your fears, your longings, your untapped strengths. This is the uncomfortable yet necessary stage where the unconscious begins to surface, where the patterns that have silently dictated your life become visible. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The isolation is the doorway through which this awareness enters. And once you walk through it, nothing will ever look the same again. There was a woman who spent over a decade climbing the corporate ladder, investing her entire identity into her career. When an unexpected layoff stripped her of that role, she felt shattered. Her sense of worth tied so tightly to her job title that she could not see who she was without it. In the early weeks, friends were scarce, and the silence of her days felt unbearable. But as time passed, she began to rediscover forgotten passions: painting, hiking, writing, and slowly, her life began to take a different shape. The loss that once felt like an end revealed itself as a beginning. She was no longer living to meet external expectations. She was living from a place of inner truth. Her solitude had been the catalyst for self-discovery, forcing her to confront the parts of herself she had abandoned in the pursuit of success. This is the gift hidden within the darkness, the chance to rebuild on a foundation that is entirely your own. When the universe isolates you, it is often answering a silent prayer your soul has been making for years a plea for authenticity, for clarity, for liberation from illusions. Rather than resisting the solitude, allow it to be the crucible that shapes you. Use it to listen more deeply to your intuition, to heal what has long been avoided, and to align your life with your highest values. Isolation is not the end of your story, but the bridge between who you were and who you are meant to become. Through this process, you will return to the world not as someone desperate for approval, but as someone rooted in truth, able to connect without losing yourself. The universe does not pull you away to leave you empty. It does so to prepare you for the life, purpose, and peace that can only be found when you are fully aligned with the deepest calling of your soul. Do you feel this truth in your heart? If you do, declare it boldly in the comments. I am being reborn into my true self. 6. Voluntary versus forced isolation. Sometimes life places you in two very different kinds of solitude, the one you choose and the one you never asked for. In voluntary isolation, you make a conscious decision to step away from the noise, to slow the pace, to retreat into a quieter rhythm where you can hear your own thoughts without the constant interference of the outside world. It's the moment when you decide to close the door, not out of fear, but out of the desire to reclaim your inner space. Forced isolation, however, arrives uninvited through heartbreak, loss, illness, betrayal, or sudden life changes that push you away from the familiar. At first, it can feel like exile, like the universe has turned its back on you and left you to face the silence alone. Yet Carl Jung's wisdom reminds us, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. What seems like abandonment is often an unseen spiritual intervention, a necessary clearing so that the truth within you can rise without the distortion of outside voices. Whether chosen or imposed, isolation has a way of stripping life down to its raw essence. It removes the noise, the endless distractions, the constant tug of war for your attention, until you are left face to face with yourself. This is where the spiritual journey deepens, when you have no one to perform for, no role to play, and no audience to please. Discomfort often comes first, but it is in that discomfort that the greatest revelations emerge. You begin to notice the patterns you've been repeating unconsciously, the desires you've been burying, the fears you've been avoiding, and the strengths you didn't know you had. This is why monks retreat to mountains, sages wander into the desert, and writers seek quiet rooms, because solitude, when embraced, becomes a sacred mirror. It reflects not who the world thinks you are, but who you truly are beneath every mask. Forced isolation can be one of life's most misunderstood blessings. It is the universe's way of removing what no longer serves your soul's evolution, even if you would have never let it go on your own. Sometimes people, places, or habits fall away, not because they were bad, but because they kept you small. In that emptiness, you are given the space to repair your spirit, to build an unshakable sense of self-worth, and to strengthen your connection with the spiritual core that will guide your next chapter. This is not a time of punishment. It is a time of preparation. It is the pruning before the bloom, the stillness before the next great movement of your life. And when you emerge from it wiser, lighter, and more certain of who you are, you will understand that the isolation you once feared was in fact the most profound gift the universe could have given you. 7. Resisting isolation blocks growth. Resisting isolation through constant distractions or the endless search for external validation becomes a silent thief of growth, quietly robbing you of the chance to face yourself and integrate the hidden parts of your being. In avoiding solitude, you avoid the shadow of those unacknowledged aspects of your soul that carry the deepest truths about who you are. Without this confrontation, self-awareness remains shallow, and life becomes a performance, a constant effort to please others while betraying the essence within. The masks you wear might win approval, but they leave an emptiness that no applause can fill. Solitude is not a punishment. It is the universe clearing space for transformation, stripping away the noise and the roles you've been conditioned to play so that the unfiltered self can finally emerge. In that quiet space, the process of individuation that Carl Jung spoke of takes root. A journey of weaving together every fragmented piece of your identity into a whole, authentic self. This path demands that you meet your own shadow without fear, that you acknowledge the wounds you've tried to bury, and that you accept the truths you've long avoided. It is uncomfortable, even painful, but in this stillness, you begin to recognize the patterns that have been running your life, the beliefs that have kept you small, and the cycles that keep repeating until you choose to break them. Yet most people try to bypass this sacred work. They drown themselves in the digital noise of endless scrolling, rush from one social engagement to the next, or bury their discomfort in work that demands their time but not their heart. But the soul is not fooled. It waits patiently, sending the same lessons back again and again until you are willing to sit still and listen. The longer you resist, the louder these lessons become, often arriving as heartbreak, disconnection, or an inner restlessness that no distraction can soothe. The paradox is that the stillness you fear holds the very freedom you seek. It is in solitude that you stop performing and start hearing your own voice, your deepest needs, and the subtle whispers of the universe guiding you toward alignment. In time, the isolation you once resisted becomes a sanctuary, a place where your soul breathes freely, unburdened by expectations or roles. And when you return to the world from this place, you carry a quiet strength, a clarity that cannot be shaken, because you have met yourself in the depths and chosen to live in truth. Leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss insights like this that guide you toward true self-awareness and authentic living. Comment below. I embrace solitude for my highest growth. 8. The reward of embracing solitude. Carl Jung once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And often, life pushes us into solitude so that we can uncover that truth without the noise of other people's expectations. When the universe isolates you, it can feel unsettling. You might question why certain friends drift away, why familiar opportunities suddenly dissolve, or why you no longer feel at home in the places you once loved. But this separation is not punishment. It is preparation, a sacred space where you are being reshaped for the next chapter of your life. In a world that mistakes constant connection for genuine belonging, solitude becomes one of the most precious gifts you can receive. Think of the professional who loses a stable corporate job only to later build a business that aligns perfectly with their deepest passion. or the person who walks away from a draining social circle and, in the quiet, finally hears their own inner voice. These moments are not accidents. They are invitations for the soul to breathe, for the mind to focus, and for the heart to realign with its truest calling. Carl Jung's concept of individuation reminds us that becoming whole requires the integration of every part of ourselves, our strengths and vulnerabilities, our light and shadow, our joys and our pain. This inner work demands stillness, honesty, and courage, qualities that are nearly impossible to cultivate when we are lost in the constant noise of external validation. Isolation removes the background chatter and forces us to face our unfiltered selves. It teaches us to trust our own judgment, to follow our intuition without apology, and to align our actions with our authentic values. It is not an escape from life, but a refining process that allows us to re-enter it stronger, clearer, and more grounded. In modern life, many people try to escape solitude by drowning it in distractions, endless scrolling, overscheduling, or surrounding themselves with people who do not nourish their spirit. Yet those who dare to remain in that quiet space long enough begin to discover a rare clarity that others can sense but not fully explain. They stop chasing validation because they have already validated themselves. They stop fearing judgment because they have learned that truth does not require permission to exist. Solitude becomes a training ground for resilience. Much like muscles grow stronger under resistance, the soul becomes unshakable when it learns to stand on its own. The reward of embracing solitude, as Carl Jung's wisdom shows us, is that you return to the world no longer half-formed or desperately trying to fit in, but as a whole person who knows their place and purpose. You connect with others not out of need, but out of choice, creating relationships built on authenticity rather than fear of being alone. You begin to move through life with a calm strength, unaffected by external chaos, because your roots run deep within yourself. The true message here is that isolation is not the end of your story. It is the sacred chapter where you meet your own soul, strip away the false layers, and emerge wiser, freer, and more resilient than ever before. And so, remember this: your isolation is not an accident, nor is it a sign of failure. It is a sacred pause, a necessary space where the universe shapes you, strengthens you, and prepares you for the path only you can walk. As Carl Jung taught, the journey inward is often the most challenging, but it is also the one that leads to true wholeness. Trust this season, for it is the soil in which your soul's purpose will take root. If this message spoke to you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming insights and guidance for your journey. 8 subtle signs someone secretly hates you. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Welcome to Spiritual Wisdom, where we uncover the hidden truths shaping your emotional and spiritual reality. Have you ever sensed that someone close to you is wearing a mask, saying the right words, smiling in your face, yet something inside you whispers that their energy tells a different story? In today's video, we'll explore 8 subtle but powerful signs that someone may secretly harbor resentment or hostility, even while pretending to be your friend. These insights come straight from Carl Jung's profound shadow psychology and will help you protect your peace, strengthen your intuition, and grow wiser in your relationships. As you listen, reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever felt this, but didn't know why? Comment below with "I trust my intuition" if you're ready to see through the masks and walk in greater spiritual clarity. 1. Contempt disguised as irony. Have you ever laughed along with someone only to feel a sting inside your chest moments later? A quiet ache you couldn't name, but one that lingered long after the conversation ended. Sometimes, what's dressed up as humor is actually something far darker. Contempt disguised as irony. Carl Jung taught that what we repress doesn't disappear. It slips out through the cracks in disguise, projected onto others, often without awareness. And one of the most common ways this projection shows up is through sarcasm, jokes, and backhanded compliments aimed directly at the soul of who you are. These people will smile as they stab, cloak hostility in humor, and then accuse you of being too sensitive when you finally speak up. This is not harmless teasing. This is shadow play. When someone frequently targets your insecurities under the guise of humor, it's a reflection of their own hidden wounds, unresolved envy, or inferiority energies too painful for them to admit, so they cast them onto you in a socially acceptable way. Jung called this projection a psychological defense mechanism that allows people to dump their unconscious emotions onto others. And in this case, they weaponize words while maintaining the appearance of friendliness. That's what makes it so confusing, so emotionally draining. You're left questioning yourself, wondering if you overreacted, when in fact, your intuition picked up on something very real. Sarcasm that leaves you feeling small, jokes that highlight your failures, and constant teasing that chips away at your self-worth are not signs of camaraderie, they are red flags. These subtle assaults may not leave bruises on the body, but they bruise the soul, and over time, they erode trust and connection. And when you confront this behavior, they rarely take responsibility. Instead, they pivot, deflect, or accuse. "I was only kidding," they'll say. Or worse, "You're just too emotional." This is gaslighting, a manipulation tactic designed to make you question your reality and silence your truth. But Carl Jung reminds us that our soul always knows. It knows when something feels off, even when the surface looks fine. Your discomfort is your guidance. Your hurt is not a weakness, it's a signal. And when you listen to that signal, you reclaim your power. You stop tolerating spiritual microaggressions that eat away at your self-esteem and start honoring your boundaries, your worth, and your emotional truth. These experiences aren't just psychological, they're deeply spiritual. Because when someone's shadow attacks your light, it's not a random act. It's a clash of frequencies. It's one soul reacting to the presence of another that reflects back their own fragmentation. So the next time someone makes you the butt of their jokes, pay attention not just to what they say, but to how your soul responds. Does your body tense? Does your spirit shrink? That's not a coincidence. It's a message. You are not here to be anyone's emotional dumpster or unconscious target. You are here to live in alignment with your soul's truth. And that means recognizing when love is false, even when it smiles. Because true connection doesn't humiliate, it uplifts. It doesn't provoke pain, it fosters safety. Your soul deserves nothing less. If you've ever felt the sting behind someone's joke, you're not alone. Carl Jung taught us that what people project often reveals more about them than it does about us. Comment, "I agree," if you've experienced sarcasm used as a mask for contempt, or "I don't think so." If you see it differently, we'd love to hear your perspective. 2. Subtle sabotage. They undermine you in ways so quiet, so cleverly disguised, that you question your own instincts, like when they conveniently forget to pass on crucial information, or give you advice that somehow always leads to confusion, delay, or failure. And just when you're about to rise, when that opportunity finally appears, or you're on the verge of achieving something important, here comes the complication, the mix-up, the emotional detour they help create. You wonder if it's bad luck, or maybe they're just overwhelmed. But when it keeps happening, a deeper truth starts to emerge. Carl Jung called this the manifestation of the shadow, the hidden, repressed part of the psyche that contains jealousy, insecurity, and unresolved wounds. When someone hasn't integrated their shadow, they often sabotage others, not out of malice, but because your growth threatens their carefully constructed identity. If your soul shines too brightly, it makes them feel the weight of their own unlived potential. They might not even realize they're doing it after all. The shadow works in secret, but you feel it. In the moment, they call your dream unrealistic, or offer support that's laced with hesitation, or celebrate you in public while sowing doubt in private. It happens at work, when a colleague leaves you out of an important email chain and later says, "Oh, I assumed you knew." It happens in friendships, when someone gives you bad advice and then watches from the sidelines as you struggle, offering comfort but never accountability. It happens in love, when a partner cheers for your ambition but subtly pulls away each time you get closer to your purpose. It's not the loud betrayal that wounds the soul. It's the 1,000 small acts of disguised resistance. Carl Jung warned that what we do not bring to consciousness will rule our lives. That includes the unconscious intentions of others. And if you ignore those subtle patterns long enough, your energy begins to fracture under the weight of constant second-guessing. The story many of us live is this: we begin to awaken, to speak our truth, to step into the life we feel called to lead. And instead of being met with celebration, we are met with silence, avoidance, and invisible walls. That's because your evolution triggers what others haven't healed. And their shadow wants one thing to bring you back to where it feels safe. But your soul didn't come here to play small. It came to remember. So you must learn to recognize the difference between someone who truly supports you and someone who only tolerates your light when it doesn't shine too far beyond theirs. Watch how they respond to your confidence, your boundaries, your peace. Because the ones who carry hidden envy will sabotage you in smiles. They will clap for your wins with one hand while plotting your doubt with the other. This isn't about paranoia. It's about self-respect. Trust the patterns, not just the words. Because when someone consistently causes confusion, delays your growth, or makes you feel smaller in their presence, it's not love, it's a shadow war. And the greatest act of spiritual strength is not confrontation, but clarity. You are not here to dim your light to protect someone else's insecurity. You are here to rise. As Carl Jung said, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Let this truth awaken you not to bitterness, but to boundaries, not to suspicion, but to soul wisdom. Have you ever felt like someone was quietly working against you, subtly making things harder, without ever admitting it? If you've experienced this kind of sabotage, comment yes. If not, comment no. And if you're unsure, or it only happens sometimes, type sometimes below. Let's see how many of us have felt this hidden tension. 3. Silent competition. They smile when you share good news, but somehow you feel smaller afterward. You tell them about your promotion, and they respond with a bigger one. You mention your new car, and they talk about theirs being more expensive, faster, or rare. At first, you may brush it off as coincidence, but if you look closely, you'll begin to notice a pattern. They can't genuinely celebrate you unless they feel like they've surpassed you. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." And this truth cuts to the heart of silent competition. According to Jung's shadow psychology, this need to constantly one-up others is often not a sign of confidence, but a desperate attempt to mask a spiritual wound, a feeling of deep inadequacy that has been buried and never healed. These individuals unconsciously project their inner inferiority onto you, turning every interaction into a subtle contest that you never agreed to enter. What makes this even more confusing is that they often appear supportive on the surface. They might clap for you, but there's tension in the air, a strange energy that leaves you second-guessing your joy. They'll give you a compliment, but somehow twist the conversation to center themselves, reclaiming the spotlight in ways that are hard to call out without sounding petty. This behavior is often rooted in the fear of being invisible, of not mattering unless they're the best in the room. In spiritual terms, it's a form of ego possession, a shadow-driven defense mechanism that keeps them from facing their own sense of not being enough. They believe your success reflects their failure rather than recognizing that two souls can shine simultaneously. And if you've ever tried to dim your own light to make them feel more comfortable, you already know the high cost of staying connected to someone who's quietly competing with you. It becomes exhausting, draining your energy and dimming your spirit over time. Spiritually conscious relationships, on the other hand, celebrate mutual growth and expansion. There's no scoreboard, only genuine support. In a world where appearances often mask deeper truths, recognizing silent competition is not just about protecting your peace. It's about awakening to the subtle ways spiritual envy can hide behind fake smiles and polite applause. The goal isn't to confront or accuse, but to become more aware of the energies you allow into your space. As Jung reminds us, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. So look inward, trust your intuition, and honor your soul's need for authentic connection. Because when someone is silently competing with you, they're not just diminishing your light, they're revealing how disconnected they are from their own. And your awareness of this isn't judgment, it's spiritual self-protection. 4. Superficial support. They say they support you, but their energy tells another story. A story of absence wrapped in politeness, of distance masked by smiles. Their words might be sweet, even congratulatory, but when life gets heavy or your soul shines too brightly, they vanish or fall silent. You feel it in their presence, cold, disconnected, indifferent, like they're physically with you, but emotionally somewhere else. Carl Jung called this kind of emotional detachment ego dissociation, where a person becomes so disconnected from their own emotions that they lose the capacity for authentic connection. When someone cannot access their own soul, when they've buried their true feelings beneath layers of ego, shame, or comparison, they also become unable to meet yours with genuine warmth. So instead of celebrating your growth, they offer shallow validation that feels scripted, almost robotic. It's not always what they say, it's what they withhold. The lack of eye contact, the delayed response to your joy, the subtle shift in tone when you talk about something meaningful. These are not coincidences. They are signals from the unconscious, clues from the shadow that Jung said holds all the parts of ourselves we repress: jealousy, envy, inadequacy, fear. And when your soul glows with clarity and peace, it threatens those who are still avoiding their own shadows. Your light exposes their darkness, not because you intend to, but because truth reveals what is false. So they retreat, emotionally and spiritually, offering you only a diluted version of friendship, one that looks real but feels empty. This isn't about drama or overanalyzing every interaction. It's about honoring your soul's intelligence, that soft discomfort in your gut, that inner whisper saying something is off that is wisdom. Energy always speaks first. Words follow, but the soul feels the truth before the mind can explain it. The most dangerous form of pretense is not hatred, it's false support. Because it confuses the heart, makes you doubt your own perception, and can leave you spiritually exhausted. So pay attention to what is said and unsaid. Look beyond gestures and ask yourself, does their presence nourish or drain me? Do they show up when it matters or only when it benefits them? The soul doesn't lie. And when you trust it, you free yourself from illusions disguised as kindness, from approval that lacks depth, and from connections that look safe but are spiritually hollow. You deserve relationships that move beyond the surface, that feel like home, that breathe life into your being, not those that make your spirit question its worth. If you've ever felt the sting of empty words and distant energy, you're not alone. If this message speaks to your soul, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. Your path to emotional clarity and deeper spiritual connection grows with every insight we share. 5. Control, disguised as concern. They won't yell. They won't openly criticize. Instead, they'll wrap their control in the softness of concern, slipping manipulation into the tone of care and calling it love. I'm just looking out for you, they'll say. I care about your future, that's why I'm asking. But somehow, every time you speak with them, you leave feeling smaller, second-guessing your decisions, wondering if maybe they're right and you're not ready. What they're really doing is projecting their fear onto your freedom. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the unconscious part of ourselves that holds our deepest fears, insecurities, and suppressed emotions. And when someone hasn't dealt with their own chaos, they'll unconsciously try to regulate yours. Your courage threatens their comfort. Your clarity disrupts their illusion of control. And so they use concern as a leash, subtly tugging you back when you try to run toward your truth. I remember the story of a woman named Sarah who had spent years in a soul-draining corporate job. One day, she finally decided to break free and open her own yoga and wellness studio. It wasn't just a career change, it was a spiritual awakening, a return to herself. But instead of celebration, her closest friend began offering constant advice. Are you sure this isn't too risky? What if the economy crashes? What if you're not cut out for this? It was never outright disapproval, just a steady stream of doubt disguised as love. Over time, Sarah realized that her friend wasn't trying to protect her. She was trying to keep her from leaving the shared space of limitation they both once occupied. Sarah's leap forced her friend to confront her own stagnation, and that was too uncomfortable. As Carl Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Her friend was not reacting to Sarah's actions. She was reacting to the parts of herself she hadn't yet owned. This is what makes disguised control so dangerous. It doesn't sound like manipulation. It sounds like care. But true concern never tries to limit you. True love doesn't come with strings or subtle punishments. When someone is genuinely concerned for your soul, they offer support, not surveillance. They celebrate your evolution, even when it changes the dynamic. They don't try to pull you back into who you used to be just because they're afraid of who you're becoming. So the next time someone questions your path under the banner of just helping, take a breath and listen beyond their words. Ask yourself, are they actually supporting my growth, or are they trying to control it? Carl Jung taught us that once we become aware of the unconscious, we take back the power to choose how we respond. You don't need to argue. You don't need to prove anything. You simply need to recognize when someone's fear is trying to disguise itself as your truth. And then you choose your soul. You move forward anyway. You honor your vision, even when others can't see it, because their inability to deal with their shadow is not your burden to carry. The more spiritually aligned you become, the more you'll notice this pattern. The people who truly love you will stand beside your fire, even if it makes them sweat. The ones who don't will try to smother it under the weight of their disguised fears. But that's not your path to walk. Your path is forward, lit by clarity, moved by purpose, and guided by your soul, not by someone else's shadow. 6. Gossip and distortion. One of the most insidious signs that someone is pretending to like you is not what they say to your face, but what they whisper behind your back. Instead of having the courage to confront you directly, they choose the path of spiritual cowardice, gossip, distortion, and calculated silence. They magnify your smallest flaws, twist your words, and turn your human moments into exaggerated stories for an audience hungry for drama. You begin to notice it not through confrontation, but through cold shoulders, subtle avoidance, and the way conversations fall silent when you enter the room. Carl Jung taught that what people project onto others often reveals the parts of themselves they are too ashamed to acknowledge. Shame is a soul-eating emotion, he said, and these people, driven by shame and jealousy, can't handle the brightness of your spiritual presence. So they smear your name in the dark, hoping to dim your light without ever being seen holding the match. And here's the spiritual irony. They often disguise this sabotage as concern. I'm just worried about them, they say with a smirk. But true concern doesn't poison reputations or isolate souls. Real care is confronted with compassion, not whispers laced with venom. Their words don't just damage your image, they attempt to fracture your energy. This is more than social sabotage. It's energetic manipulation. Your soul begins to feel it before your mind can explain it. You feel tension in the spaces they've spoken in, even when they smile at you. You sense hesitation in the eyes of mutual friends. And it's not in your head, it's in the field. Jung warned that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And this is exactly what happens when people are controlled by their own shadows. They cannot love you genuinely because your authenticity mirrors their own lack of it. Your presence demands truth, and that terrifies those who live in illusion. But there is a spiritual gift buried in this discomfort. It sharpens your discernment. It deepens your solitude into strength. You stop explaining yourself. You stop chasing clarity from those who only offer confusion. And most importantly, you stop doubting the truth your soul already knows. People who can be turned against you by gossip were never truly with you. Those who distance themselves without asking for your side of the story have shown you their level of loyalty. And those who can only see you through the fog of someone else's distortion were never seeing you at all. What they fear is not your mistakes, it's your presence, your peace, your refusal to shrink. So trust the silence, honor the shift, and let their whispers be the soundtrack of your rising, not the anchor to your identity. Are you ready to rise above the noise and reclaim your truth? If so, comment below, "I choose clarity," to affirm your commitment to spiritual growth and inner peace. 7. Know joy in your joy. They say they're happy for you, but when you look closely, really closely, you'll notice something's missing. That genuine spark in their eyes, that heartfelt tone in their voice, it's not there. The words might sound right, but the energy doesn't lie. You share your achievement, a joyful win that came from your soul's hard work and growth, and suddenly the air gets heavy. Their smile is polite but stiff, their response delayed or quickly redirected. Maybe they change the subject, give a half-hearted nice, or toss in a veiled jab disguised as humor. Must be nice to have all that free time. And you feel it, that silent disappointment you weren't supposed to notice. Carl Jung taught us that the shadow of those unconscious parts of the psyche we deny often holds resentment, envy, and unresolved pain. When someone cannot celebrate your joy, it's not about you. It's about the inner battle they're losing with their own shadow. Your success triggers something buried inside them, a dormant wound that whispers, "Why not me?" Your elevation reminds them of their perceived failures. And instead of facing that truth with courage, they deflect it onto you, withdrawing emotionally or responding with false enthusiasm. This isn't just a lack of support. It's a reflection of a fractured soul still entangled in unhealed stories. And if you're spiritually aware, you'll feel this dissonance immediately. Because the soul is sensitive to vibration, and when someone's energy doesn't align with their words, you'll sense it before you understand it. That tension isn't your imagination, it's your intuition speaking. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But in this case, it also reveals something about their inability to hold space for your light without dimming it through passive detachment. This kind of hidden resistance is dangerous because it masks itself in civility. It's not an overt attack. It's spiritual sabotage wrapped in silence. And the most painful part? It often comes from people you thought would be proud of you. But you must remember, your soul did not come here to stay small for the sake of someone else's comfort. Your joy is divine. It is the external echo of internal alignment, the evidence that you've done the inner work to rise. And if that rise unsettles those around you, let it. Do not trade your light for their approval. Do not shrink to keep someone else from confronting their shadow. Instead, bless them silently and keep rising. Because the soul that cannot celebrate you is the one secretly competing with you. And you were never meant to be in a competition. You were meant to shine unapologetically. 8. Nonverbal betrayal. Have you ever shared something beautiful about your life? A moment of success, a joyful milestone, or a well-earned victory only to be met with a smile that didn't quite reach their eyes, or a silence that felt colder than any rejection? You sensed it instantly, not with logic, but with something deeper, something ancient in your soul. Carl Jung once said, "The unconscious always leaks through," and it does especially in the stillness between words and the stiffness between gestures. Someone who pretends to be happy for you might say all the right things, but their body tells a different story. A fake smile, a distant look, an oddly timed pause, or a hug that feels more like a goodbye than congratulations. These are not random. They are the shadow leaking out, the part of them that their ego tries to keep hidden, but your intuition catches in an instant. That cold glance they throw when others praise you, the tightness in their posture when you succeed, the way their eyes shift when you walk into the room glowing. They may not say it, but their soul is broadcasting it. Resentment, envy, and subtle hostility dressed in politeness. And in today's world, where so much is filtered, edited, and masked by performance, this kind of emotional dissonance is more common than we'd like to admit. You begin to realize that the shadow isn't always about cruelty or malice. It's about unacknowledged pain, jealousy, or fear that others haven't yet faced. You become a mirror, and your light disturbs what they've buried. A woman I once knew worked in a creative field where collaboration was supposed to be everything. She thrived, she rose, and her ideas were celebrated. But every time she spoke in meetings, one colleague would look away, blink excessively, or fold their arms tightly across their chest. It was subtle, never loud, never confrontational, but it was real. And that energy, unspoken yet undeniable, told her the truth long before words ever did. This is the nature of shadow behavior. People don't always know they're doing it. They may think they're being supportive, kind, or professional, but your soul knows. You feel the tight energy, the sharp micro-reactions, the misalignment between their words and their presence. And the more spiritually attuned you become, the more you will sense these betrayals not to judge, but to protect your peace. Because not everyone who claps for you actually wants you to win. Not everyone who sits at your table is truly celebrating your feast. Some are just waiting for you to trip so they can sip their envy in silence. The lesson is not to grow bitter, but wiser. Carl Jung's work reminds us that the greatest mastery lies in seeing the shadow hours and theirs, and responding with clarity, not confusion. When you honor your intuition, you're no longer gaslighting your own soul. You stop telling yourself, "Maybe I'm overreacting," and start saying, "My spirit knows what it feels." And that changes everything. Because in a world where so much is fake, your ability to discern real from pretend becomes your greatest spiritual compass. So pay attention to the body language, to the tension behind the tone, to the emotional undercurrents behind the praise. Leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like this. If you've ever sensed someone's true feelings through their body language, type in the comments, "My intuition sees the truth." Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden signs of shadow behavior and false friendship. If this message helped you see certain people more clearly or brought awareness to your own energy, remember, you're not alone on this journey of spiritual awakening and emotional clarity. At Spiritual Wisdom, we're here to guide you through the unseen layers of human psychology and soul growth. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who might need this insight, and subscribe to our channel. Be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss the truth behind the mask in our upcoming videos. Stay wise, stay protected, and keep walking the path of self-awareness.